just there you go. Just to let folks know that we'll be doing that. So if you'd like to turn off your camera, please feel free to do so. But we definitely welcome folks to have their camera on for the remainder of the evening. I did want to start this conversation and gathering in a good way. And part of that is taking a moment to center our relationship with the land we gather on, the history of that land, and to honor the families who have been here for thousands of years. We are hosting from and do our community work on the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region, which is home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, the Kainai, and the Piikani nations, as well as home to Tsuut'ina Nation, L'Irish Nakota nations, and home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We are all Treaty people. Treaty 7 was and is a promise between nations to share the land and support one another, to establish peaceful relations, and it is up to each and every one of us to work to make this place in the world better for all future generations. This can and should include being familiar with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action, and to be helping to implement them. For those of us who live, work, and are in community, specifically in Calgary, the same is true with the White Goose Flying Report. All Canadians should also know about and be helping to implement the calls to action from the Reclaiming Power in Place, the final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. There's a few ways that you can get involved. One of them is the Reconciliation Action Group has had several calls for support right now, including with regards to supporting the Indigenous Gathering Place and with renaming of Sir John A. Macdonald School. In addition, there's the Niitsitapi Water Protectors continue to seek support with writing to decision makers in support of no coal mines on Niitsitapi land. There's Bear Clan Patrol, goes out into community and is always seeking volunteers and support. And then there's, and for us, really, reconciliation is a verb. It requires us taking action and deepening our relationships. In addition, I wanted to, and we want to acknowledge that on the weekend, Calgary Police Service killed Latour Tuel, and a protest is being organized on Friday at 1 p.m. at City Hall. So this Friday, the Sudanese community is seeking people to show up and support them in this time of grief.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyson, for getting us started and for sharing these important resources and that reminder to make sure that when we're doing our community work, we're really centering the people of this land in that and being aware of what that means as we do our community work. So we're going to take a couple of minutes here to introduce ourselves, set the stage a bit for our roundtable tonight. We're super excited to be gathering on this cold Tuesday evening, but it should be a great evening of learning together. So my name, for those of you who don't know me, is Amanda Palmer, and I use pronouns she and her. And I grew up on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe in a small town in what is currently known as Eastern Ontario. But I've been living here in Mohkinstsis for 8 years and am grateful to call it my home. And it's here that I really uncovered my passion for community development.
And hi, everyone. My name is Tyson Bankert. I go by he, him pronouns. I've lived in Mohkinstsis, Calgary, virtually my entire life, and I'm really honored to be able to witness so many different community projects and see how people grow in community. For myself, I can be summarized by my personal slogan, which is to edify others, befriend the lonely, and promote justice. Thanks, everyone.
So Tyson and I have the pleasure and privilege of working for CDLI, the Community Development Learning Initiative, which is a Calgary-based network for community-minded people who are seeking to deepen their connections and capacities to create positive change in their communities. And our work is made possible thanks to our core funders, Calgary Foundation, the City of Calgary, and the United Way of Calgary. And Tyson and I like to describe our work as holding space for imagining new futures together, where all people in Calgary welcome each other and work together to take collective action for the common good. And we aim to do this at CDLI by convening people passionate about community regularly at things like tonight, with many other community development conversations happening each month as well. Each month we have a different themed topic. Like tonight, we also have space for practitioner gatherings once a month. We started reflexive practice. There's many different ways to connect with your wider community. And in addition to that, we aim to build capacity, which we primarily do through our training called Success in Community Action. It's an 8-week learning opportunity and it starts next Monday. So if that's of interest to you, check that out and register soon. And we also aim to be a resource hub, sharing tools, information, connections, and stories of people and groups doing important work in Calgary and beyond. And that's part of what brought us together tonight. So last summer and fall, we had an amazing youth join us, and they're actually with us tonight. So shout out to Vic. And we partnered with the Community Hubs Initiative and the City of Calgary's Neighborhoods team to tell the stories of some amazing Calgarians who are making things happen in their communities. And you can see several of those stories on our website and social media channels, Twitter and Instagram mostly right now. So to complement the interviews that Vic conducted and the stories that have been shared so far and will continue to be shared, we wanted to bring together some of the people we talked to, as well as some new voices to speak to their experiences and provide insights on the neighborhood grants that helped to make community initiatives possible. So after our roundtable tonight, we'll also be hearing from some of the amazing community social work team from the City of Calgary, who are going to speak a bit to that neighborhood grant and how you can apply for it yourself. We do have an important update for everyone. Unfortunately, late this afternoon, Prudence had something come up that they aren't able to get away from. So we're not going to hear from Prudence today at this roundtable, but we'll definitely be having a conversation with Prudence about another time that we can get together and have a conversation with her about her amazing work with Black People United. So our roundtable today is going to be introduced shortly by Tyson, but the amazing Karen and Roxana, and we'll then hear from Jessica and Darren about the grants. So Tyson, do you want to introduce our amazing panel and get us started?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really honored to be able to introduce both Karen and Roxana tonight. I've had the privilege of actually working with them in different ways over the years, so it's really great to be able to showcase their work. So Karen Begg is an active Dover resident who has initiated a number of community-based projects to animate the community. Karen is an artist by profession, and all of her works in the community to imbibe with that artistic touch. She has 5 artworks along the 17 BRT Max Purple line. Some of her notable contributions to the community are organizing Jane's Walks, which I've been able to participate quite a few years ago, and absolutely fantastic. Supporting Resident Plex Free Pantry, which is also in Dover, and she's a steward for the Free Little Library network. I'm supporting anti-graffiti initiatives and supporting city's Neighbourhood Grants Committee, which you'll learn more about today, and supporting the beautification of Community Garden. Her recent project involving seniors in Dover was to support their mental health and well-being during COVID-19. It has been widely recognized and acknowledged. By helping seniors to create beautiful and meaningful pieces of art, this project not only supported their emotional wellness, but also helped them to give expression to their creative side. Furthermore, the artworks created by the seniors have been well used to decorate the community garden, bringing positive vibes of hope and cheer to the community. And for our second panelist, we have Roxana Rivera. Roxana has lived in Marlborough all of her life. She began volunteering because she felt that she could do something to create change in her community. She likes video editing, helping others learn. It is important to help others learn for her, whether it's math or equality. And she hopes to make a difference too. You can also catch Roxana on TikTok, and their handle is Fight the Stereotype. And there's some information there about Roxana in the chat as well. So thanks everyone for being able to attend tonight. We have got quite a few discussion topics for the panelists, but really we'll keep the conversation going and be as light as possible. But for each of you, first, and I'll start off with Karen, if you wouldn't mind telling us about the story of your community project and what was the inspiration?
Well, the inspiration for my project, which was called Birds and Blooms, was twofold. I felt so bad that the seniors had been in isolation and COVID at the beginning, just a scary time. and do something to benefit the seniors. But I love the community garden that I'm part of. It's Twin Views Communal Garden in Dover. And the location of it, we share a property line with a very large senior center. There's 3 buildings of independent living, as well as a brand new dementia center. And so I wanted to do something for the garden and the seniors. So actually I applied for a grant. This one here was through the City of Calgary Artist Initiated public art grants. And I got the money to be able to move forward. And I originally did 50 senior safe painting kits. And each kit contained a canvas, a cutout, paints, brushes, stamps, stencils for each individual senior as instructions. And so to keep everything, painted the cutout on both sides and returned it to me. And then we them for outdoor, and then we installed them on the fence at the community garden. And it brightened a very dull corner. It gave the seniors that share a property line with us a place to be able to walk, see their family. There's a park right next door, as well as it's a very well-used shortcut to take the bus. And I did up the kits. We dropped them off at the center. They would sit for 48 hours before the seniors could have them. They painted them. They had a great time. They returned them to me and we installed them. There was so much demand though. I not only worked with the 50 folks at the Bethany Care Center in Dover, I also managed to do kits for the Calgary Vietnamese Women's Association. And that was kind of exciting. It was multi-generational, a lot of multi-generational homes. So my youngest painter was 5 and my eldest was 92. The creativity that we saw was wonderful. And we also partnered with another seniors community in Northwest Calgary. And they painted some as well. And my eldest painter there was 98.
Oh, fantastic.
But it gave them a sense of belonging and where they'd actually go, whether it be a chance to way to the shortcut to the bus, or if they could go with their families to an outdoor space to view the work. It just made my heart feel good. And in total, we did 74 kits. We stretched our budget. I got installation for when I started to tell my friends about the project. We cut down on all our installation costs. We drilled them, we stained them with outdoor protective, and we did all that well under budget so we could do up more kits. And it was installed in December of 2020 and still looks okay.
Great, that's awesome. I'll have to, I sometimes walk my dog along the ridge there in Dover, so I'll have to check it out actually and see it, so awesome. We'll learn a little bit more from you, Karen, but I'll go to Roxana. So Roxana, curious for you, same question. Tell us about the story of your community project and what was the inspiration?
So from before we even began this type of project, my group and I were already making like videos on TikTok and YouTube because we like the idea of teaching other people about things we thought were important, like equality and climate change and all that. And then we were notified by our community social worker that we could like collaborate with other social work students to be able to display a type of video that would teach people about equality to others in like a Zoom meeting, you know. So we decided we were thinking of what to do first, and then it came to the video because everyone was like giving all their opinions and all their ideas. And it was really nice seeing how everyone like put in ideas and everyone was supporting with all of their different talents. We were able to make a video and a little Zoom meeting where we could show people about anti-racism and racism and kind of teach people about it.
Great. And just a question with the other social workers, that was, where were the other social workers from?
The University of Calgary, they were social work students.
Awesome, cool. That was a pretty big project. And so I will go and ask Karen. Thanks Roxana for giving us the download on that information. So the next question is to you, Karen. What surprised you about implementing your project? So really, what maybe did you learn about yourself or your community?
The community, what I learned from them is tenfold. The creativity, the eagerness to participate, the amount of seniors that have been out to see the project. It's just been absolute asked to be involved with a better project. I have had several requests from the same senior center to do it on a grander scale because the need for activities and then to also make them feel included by it being installed in a public space, I really think was mutually beneficial, not only for brightening our neighborhood, but for also making the seniors feel included and participating in our neighborhoods.
Can I ask a question about was there a specific story or any feedback you got from a particular senior that really demonstrated some of the things that you're referring to?
Well, I was very fortunate to have a lot of support. Friends from people in the industry to get me pointed in the right direction. I think honestly the creativity from the seniors, because again they had to paint them isolated, they couldn't gather in groups at the time, and just the creativity was astounding. They have so much to offer, and I think sometimes we forget that. And so to be able to bring this to my whole community, my neighborhood, and my friends, my neighbors, the people that use the park and the Forest Lawn Senior Center, the great, can't think of it for the life of me right now, share another property line west, to see them get involved and to see other groups come up with this idea as well, and to be able to execute it is reward on its own. So many stories. I can't even think of one right now.
Well, yeah, and I think especially with everything that specifically that has happened to seniors demographic in terms of within care homes, and how probably the constant fear potentially of things like COVID and what was in the news. I think having an opportunity to sort of be able to separate yourself from that for a few moments is really important. And one other question I had was, you mentioned that some of these kits were also delivered to folks within the Vietnamese community. So I was curious, where would that be currently located?
Well, it's actually installed at the garden as well.
Oh, okay, great.
The Vietnamese Women's Association reached out to me, and I was able to get them some kits. And then for the kids, because I realized I didn't know the word, I guess I just didn't realize the multi-generational. So with their kits, I also included some keychains. Whether it was cutout, some of the cutouts, because they were painted both sides. I had the youngins do one side and the seniors do the other. But it really brought them together because, again, isolation affected us all. And so to be able to kind of bring families together to participate in an event again for the beautification of our neighborhood is just wonderful.
And is there any thought on doing something similar again in the future?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, specifically because I was doing this when I started the project with seniors in mind. I couldn't use small paints. I had to make them so they were flip tops, so arthritic hands could use the paint. So those little paint pots that we can give children didn't work for seniors. The brushes, the handles had to be some of the seniors aren't overly creative, maybe had never had a lesson, and not being able to be with them to facilitate it, they had to navigate that on their own. So I tried to make it as easy as possible by making all the to make it arthritic and friendly.
Awesome, great. All right, thanks, Karen, so much for that, all that information. I'll direct my question to Roxana. So what surprised you about implementing your project? What maybe did you learn about yourself or your community?
What surprised me in this project was seeing how like everyone can help to do something. So a big part in our group was other community members, and using like their talents, everyone was able to help to do something, even if it was just something as small as like giving an idea to make the video, or helping to direct the Zoom meetings, making the videos. Everyone could have like a little part to make it like so much better. And so seeing how talented the community was the best part, I think.
Great. You had, we spoke back in December with you and the other folks who helped support this event. Would you mind just sort of also, I guess we can also identify some of the work that they did, and how each of you, that was really cool, is each of you did have a really strong role in creating the event. How curious about it though, I'm curious a little bit about whether it was anything that you were sort of nervous about, because it sounded like from our conversation earlier that this was sort of a new thing for a lot of you. So talk a little bit about that sort of sense of maybe nervousness maybe that you guys had.
So yeah, we were a little bit nervous because we hadn't really like shown videos that we had made to a large group of people. The videos that we put are like just like on TikTok, and there you can turn off the comments and all of that. In this one, we were a bit nervous in how could we get our message like properly, how to explain to people about what we wanted to say. And that's where like the people that helped came in with giving all the different ideas, how to like edit properly the video. My biggest part was in editing the video itself. The other group members, one of them was with presenting it and talking more to the people in the Zoom meeting, and the others were basically giving the building blocks for the videos and what we were supposed to do.
That's great. And how do you think because your video specifically was around anti-racism, I'm curious, and people who attended were within the area of Marlborough. Was there anything specifically that came up around anti-racism efforts that are happening in Marlborough?
In Marlborough, there's like a lot of diversity. So a lot of people have sometimes unfortunately experienced like the differences that a person can feel based on their race. So I know a lot of people in the community really liked the videos and liked particularly how the videos kind of taught people that didn't know what anti-racism was, because a lot of people don't know what anti-racism was, and it helped to teach them. So that was good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm actually just about to put in the chat here the link to your video. So for those of you who are interested in watching that later, and there's two there that specifically I think that were showed at the event that you held. All right, so we'll go to our next question here, and this is a little bit around your experience with the grant. So what is, this is, I'll go back to Karen. So what is one step or action you can recommend for others wanting to explore neighborhood grant possibilities and engage in community work? And I think Karen also, if you could kind of speak a little bit to your experience on these committees, that'd be awesome.
Well, I've been very fortunate to be on both sides. For a number of years, I was very fortunate to get a few small grants. I got a $250 grant and started a free little library back in 2014. I donated a picnic table for $400. And that was a fun project too. It's a picnic table that's enormous. It seats 12, and you can leave one bench off, and it is the height to accommodate for a wheelchair. So it's a wheelchair senior accessible picnic table that seats 12. And it's I did that one on $400, got my friends and neighbors to paint it. And I would say when it comes to adjudication, I think intent means a lot. The things that I think are quite important is if a project can help with economic development or reduce barriers, stimulate economic participation. Another important factor, I think, is anything that fosters being inclusive, whether it be like with Birds and Blooms. My information sheet was written not only in English, but also in Vietnamese to make it accessible to a more isolated demographic. And so I think being in economic participation, anything that can make your community more inclusive, and anything that fosters truth and reconciliation, and that learning and understanding goes a long ways. I can't thank all my community workers enough for their support. Just being able to have an idea and be able to reach out to somebody that knows the in and outs of the paperwork was really helpful to bounce ideas around and get my idea to fruition was really helpful. And I've had a couple of people in my court that I just truly can't thank enough for their guidance. So I would say if you're interested in getting involved, reach out to the support in your community, whether it be your community worker or someone involved. Have your volunteers kind of lined up and an idea of the direction and the focus of your project. Like I always try and focus on the three, truth and reconciliation, something to reduce barriers, and to make it inclusive and I think that's important, whether you're applying for a grant or you're an adjudicator for a grant. I think those are the focuses that I deem quite important.
Right. I guess can I ask one more question about on this topic? Is you've had a lot of experience from having your work in being seen sort of along the BRT line to sort of some more smaller things throughout the community, and I guess I'm wondering as an artist, how is that really important for you to be able to sort of be part of the wide spectrum of what not only your medium and what you do, but like it's all really within sort of the community that you live and get to work and play in.
Well, I love where I live. I truly do. And when I got here, I could kind of see a need. It had its share of difficulties. I came from a fairly affluent neighborhood, and we didn't have much crime, but we also didn't have a sense of community. Dover has a very, very strong sense of community. In fact, I find the GFL has a real strong sense of community. And it was kind of easy to get here and look around and see little things I could do to make other people want to live here too. So, you know, a free little library was a small step. I've always been concerned, just as a person, about food security for people. I'm fortunate, but I know there's a lot of people aren't that out. So one Christmas, I tried to set up a free pantry, but it's very difficult if it's one person on your own. Right. So that's when I teamed up with Resident Plex, who had a core of wonderful volunteers. And so I shared my experiences with them to help them be able to move forward. And I believe that they're running 8 successfully now. So that's really exciting. But it was quite difficult to do it on one's own. But being able to see a need in your community and figure out what my skill set could make it better. The artworks along 17th, that was just a public art call. And as an artist, I would have answered that. But I feel a connection to my neighborhood. You know, I'm pretty proud every time I use that bus stop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And similar to what I think Roxana was saying is people being able to identify their strengths and be able to then be able to connect that back to their community. I'm wondering also about Vic, who's here, did a lot of really great work to capture, I think, stories from people who were really, who spoke really proud of their community, specifically in GFL, so the Greater Forest Lawn area, and sort of that all these really great events help to, I think, also refute some of the stigma that I think a lot of people sometimes have about that particular about the GFL. And I'm wondering if you want to kind of speak a little bit to that, because I heard really the passion you have for the love of the Greater Forest Lawn and those connections that are there.
Once I got involved with community, I think it was easier to kind of get pointed in the right direction. I've teamed up with Action Dignity. The Calgary Foundation has been very supportive. The Jane's Walk was a wonderful thing to do in my community because I am proud of it. And so I titled my walk, The Treasures of West Dover. And because we have some great things, we have beautiful pathways and parkways and all these wonderful assets that I don't think individually people kind of realize. So to host a community walk was pretty exciting. I was surprised when I started doing Jane's Walk. I thought it would be mostly my neighbors that came out, and they come from all over the city. It's a Jane's Walk. It's a learning opportunity. So if you don't know about a community, see if they have a Jane's Walk, and you'd be surprised what you would learn. They're wonderful conversations that you have with the walkers, and just the whole vibe of it is just a wonderful experience. If you've never been on a Jane's Walk, it's the first weekend in May. I'm sure it's the first weekend in May. Thank you. Look to see if there's one in your community. And if not, start one. It's a great way to get to meet your neighbors and to learn about the wonderful assets in your community.
Absolutely. Cool. Thanks so much, Karen. I'll give that same question to you, Roxana. What's one step or action you recommend for others wanting to explore neighborhood grant possibilities and engage in community work?
A lot of what Karen said was awesome, but like to add to that, I guess also one important part is to, when you have like that idea and you know what you want to do, to just like try your best to do it, because it's possible it might end up small, or you might not get a grant or help at the start. But if you continue trying to do your idea and an idea that helps the community as well, and people find support, people support it, you're going to end up getting more people that are going to come and help, and then it's going to become more popular, and hopefully then you'll be able to get more stuff.
And it, what you were saying earlier, Roxana, about the fact that you were already sort of doing these things already on TikTok, and expressing the importance around equity. And then it was just sort of noticed, it was like a natural fit then for you and your crew to be able to then start talking about it in this platform as an event. So I just wanted to ask a little bit about how instrumental or helpful was it to have someone like Lemlem or a community social worker to really help you figure out and guide some of those of what to do?
It was very helpful because we could then get the platform, because we didn't know much about like connecting in this way and getting all these people to help and bring people to a Zoom meeting and all that. All we kind of knew was like how to make videos and stuff.
Right.
And then with help, we were able to make it like much better and make a whole event based on trying to teach something that our group finds really fun.
Yeah, awesome. That's so good. I am wondering if, we'll probably end the panel session here, but I'm wondering if either of you, Karen or Roxana, have any further things they wanted to add.
My only 2 cents would be, if you got an idea, talk there's opportunities out there to help you get on the right track and give you good advice. I had never thought about any of my projects a risk assessment. Nobody had ever even said the word to me, and just to be aware, the greater good is so rewarding. To go out there and do something that makes your community better. It will spur others to do the same, and next thing you know, you'll all love your neighborhoods.
I do actually have a question, and maybe we'll get to a little bit of Q&A actually, but I'm curious for either of you, both of these projects and many of the projects that were happening over the last couple of years have been during COVID. And so each of you have had to, the magic word pivot, I guess, and how you do your community development actions. Any thoughts or considerations to that dynamic in either this particular project or even some other thing that you may have been involved in, of how like COVID has really the positives and the negatives, I think, of having to do this work during this time?
For me, it wasn't that bad with the COVID stuff, because of our platform that we anyways use was mostly like videos. And I suppose one positive thing that was that maybe more people were more interested because they were more used to the technology of using Zoom stuff for meetings and stuff. So that kind of helped.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think that's one of like the biggest questions we get is people wondering kind of what to do or how to begin thinking about some of these things still during this time, right? So, and Karen, do you have any thoughts?
COVID made it difficult to get lots of things done. I'm glad the seniors project worked out as well as it did. We were very fortunate. We were cautious. I didn't get to meet any of the seniors until much later. The Vietnamese Women's Association has been staying in touch. So that's a connection I made from that. And with COVID, it just kind of made everything a little bit more difficult. But COVID also made me come up with a seniors project that they could do, right? And to put it on public display was just great.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, thank you, both of you, for sharing so much. It will kind of keep you online here, I guess. If I'm wondering if there's any questions people might have, or any thoughts folks have about what you've heard tonight from either of our panelists. So this is sort of our opportunity to chime in the chat, or I guess really if you want, you could unmute as well. We'll take a few questions as we have a little bit more time here tonight. So. Any inspirations that have come up for folks as what you heard? Also, shout out to Janet's dog, by the way. It's definitely paying a lot of attention.
I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about the neighborhood grants that are available in some of the communities. Like our neighborhood grants are up to $1,000. And they have kind of three principles. Do they support economic participation? Do they foster inclusivity? Do they support our learning and understanding of truth and reconciliation, or any of the calls to action? If you have an idea, again, reach out to your community worker and they'll give you a hand. But the paperwork is quite simple. There's a lot of support from your social worker. Some of the communities that they're done in is the Bob Bohan recreational pool, I believe Bowness and Sun Alta, the Village Square Community Hub, and the north of McKnight. So Falconridge and Martindale also have these granting programs. And I would imagine that they're quite similar to what's in Forest Lawn. But it's just a great way to start to get involved, meet people in your community, and to do something good. You can get up to $1,000. It factor in, with COVID, we saw quite a number of events that had to pivot to be able to move forward while they were hosting events or get-togethers of any sort, unless it was online. Safety factors. But the neighborhood grants are just a great way to take an idea and make it a tangible project.
Great, thanks, Karen, for all that information. And there's a question from Jane, and so Jane, if you want, you can unmute. But also, I see that you asked the question in the chat. But how did you manage to coordinate the seniors during COVID times? But Jane, if you have anything else you want to add to that question, feel free.
How did I coordinate the seniors? I reached out to the Bethany to see if there would be any interest and how we could manage it. So I didn't make some of the decisions on my own. I had read up on the AHS rules because I started this project I got the idea kind of at early September. It was the anniversary of my great-grandmother's death. And I had thought how isolated she would have been. Her husband predeceased her, my great-grandfather. And so she really was quite lonely. And she stayed in her own home until she was 98. And I just thought how how devastating that would have been. And
Right.
so I started to think about a project, and I reached out to the Bethany to see if the idea in my head would be feasible. And as soon as I did, they set me up with a
Right.
community engagement coordinator to help me through those logistics. And so it's always a team effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Viviana has a question as well, or their hand up anyway. Thanks, Jane, for the question.
Thank you. I have a question. So this is for both of you, Karen and Roxana. And so what would you say was the biggest challenge in your project? And by the sounds of it, it's, you know, it sounds like it was very successful and you're quite satisfied, you know, with the end product of what happened. But yeah, what would you say is the biggest challenge? And also, there's two questions, sorry, here, but what would you consider doing another community project? You know, is that something that you're thinking about or you would consider in the future?
Thanks, Viviana, for the question.
For me, the toughest part, I think, was starting. So kind of like starting, getting all the ideas and the people together was the most difficult part. After that, everything kind of fell into place, and that was nice. I would really like to do it again. It was nice the first time. So another time would be nice too.
Great.
Oh, absolutely. I would do it again. I would do it again and again and again. Absolutely. It's, yeah, I just coordinated the last one. And it just was so rewarding. In fact, I've done a couple of projects since then. My second project was funded through a small grant available through the Parks Foundation called the Embrace the Outdoors grant, and I set out to paint some sidewalk. Dover has a wonderful network of paths. It's quite unique. It's a middle ring neighborhood for the design buff in the group. And so we have a pathway that runs between our homes. We only have traffic on one side, but these pathways link all sorts of different amenities. We have a rink, we have an elementary school, we have a community association, our communal garden, our senior center. And so I set out to paint a few blocks. Not everywhere. There's rules. If you paint the whole block, you have to put anti-slip. If you just paint, I think it's less than 50% of it. And we actually painted 10 city blocks. We used stencils of flowers and butterflies. Hopscotch. Turns out no matter how old you are, people hop. We put out quite a few beside the senior center because they're walked not only by children on their way to school or kids using the rink or people using the community association. It's also used by the seniors because they are such wonderful pathways, and the Bethany is in the heart of our community. All their pathways are wheelchair accessible. So you often see caretakers out, family members out stroll. And so it was so much of the pathway. When it came to I did have one with that. Initially, when I applied to do the project, I had reached out to the powers that be and asked about permits. Mm-hmm. I talked to 311 and got some information about a permit because we weren't closing a roadway or blocking off access, because it was COVID. It was like 6 girls with stencils that were 25 feet apart, painting the sidewalk. When the permit was going to be $400. one of my volunteer painters told one of the passing neighbors, as they asked how it all come about, and we talked about the permit being $400, mostly because it had only happened that morning, and we were kind of in shock that went from to 4 on a limited grant budget. So we were concerned. We kind of told the passerby that asked the question, and she went home and put it on social media. And it took a life. Our community members were upset that we were doing this great community project and that the city had charged us $400. They did not, just so you know, we worked that out. It did go back to just $100. And in the end, they did waive it completely. But that was probably the only difficulty. So I would kind of keep the business logistics to myself and not necessarily share with the volunteers, because it was just a volunteer mentioning to a community member about the permit, and it took a life of its own.
Yeah, but what an interesting, I think, insight to what you've been, both of you have been speaking to about the power of like community and people kind of, you know, figuring out ways that they can contribute and that benefits the community. So we thanks so much for answering those two questions. We did want to highlight and allow for Jessica Politek to talk a little bit about the neighborhood grant program, but I know and anything to add in addition to what Karen has mentioned. So Jessica is a community social worker with the City of Calgary and one of the people who supports community granting committees for the neighborhood grant. So Jessica, feel free to chime in if anything you wanted to add. Any new information?
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. As Tice mentioned, I'm Jessica. I'm one of the community social workers. I work in Abbeydale. I have lots of folks here on my grant committee from Abbeydale. Hi, guys. Nice to see you. And actually, Darren Silva is going to join me to chat a little bit. And he is a Bachelor of Social Work student that's working with myself and some colleagues of mine presently. So we do have a little presentation,
Awesome.
but it'll be pretty quick. Darren, do you want to pull it up? I think you have it open on your computer because I can't seem to open it. There we go. Perfect. So Darren and I will just chat quickly and go over some stuff. Karen did a great job actually being a spokesperson for our program. So thanks, Karen, you covered lots of stuff. So we'll try and just breeze through anything that we've already touched on. Okay, and I think Darren, you just have to put it into slideshow mode.
Is it not in slideshow mode?
It is not in slideshow mode.
Does that work?
I don't know, guys. I can still see all the slides on the side. It's not really a really huge deal, but.
Interesting. I thought it was in slideshow mode.
Yeah, weird. Is it on slideshow mode for you guys now? Does it look okay?
It still has the slides up on the side there, but I think if you go to the bottom of your screen to the right there will be the icon that you can be able to do it in full mode, so we just see the main header there.
Does that work? It shows for me when it goes into like full screen. I'm very intrigued.
That's why I'm glad that Darren's sharing and not me.
Well, apparently I can't figure it out there.
But either way, though, feel free to
you
share
guys
what
can
you
see well
got.
enough. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
So, as has been alluded to throughout kind of our talk today, the City of Calgary does have a community social work program. So we have community social workers in a number of neighborhoods in the city, definitely not all neighborhoods by any means, but in a number of neighborhoods across Calgary. And we use a community development approach to provide opportunities for the residents in the neighborhoods that we work in to help build their leadership capacity and to work together to identify issues that are important to them in their community and then to take action and make an impact on those issues in their neighborhood and trying to make community-based solutions to their issues. So we define community development as an intentional approach to helping community members come together and achieve common goals that improve their economic, social, cultural, and/or environmental situation. So we've been talking a lot about neighborhood grants. So neighborhood grants are what we like to say one tool in the toolkit that we have as community social workers. So as has been mentioned, we do offer grants of up to $1,000 available to residents in targeted communities. I'll touch base on the communities shortly, but one thing I want to point out is that we, through our program, we do give money directly for projects to residents, and I think that's one thing that is a bit unique because there are a lot of granting programs that are out in Calgary through lots of great different organizations, but not many of them will give grants to residents. Lots of times you have to be part of a charity or a nonprofit organization to apply for certain other grants, and that is a barrier for folks. So we really identified that there is a need for that to be able to get access to granting dollars for just folks living in neighborhoods that wanted to do things in our community. So we do grants for residents. We don't actually fund any organizations. And the purpose of our grants is to help promote volunteerism throughout the neighborhoods, both through planning projects, but also getting volunteers to just help out in the projects as well as they take place. We're trying to encourage collaboration and cooperation between people and groups, both within a neighborhood and sometimes across different neighborhoods as well, and to make projects that are accessible and inclusive. So with respect to the communities that we serve, a few of them were mentioned, but we do actually have about 30 or so communities that are covered. So there's sort of two different formats, I suppose. Some of the individual communities where community social workers are posted. So for example, myself, I work specifically in just Abbeydale neighborhood. So we have a grant that's just for Abbeydale neighborhood. So there are about 14 different neighborhoods in the list there, which are sort of individual communities. Now, that being said, a couple of those do cross neighborhood programs as well. So I think, for example, Beltline and the downtown core do a multi-neighborhood grant program. So they would work with residents across their two neighborhoods and do applications from both of those neighborhoods. And then the other set is grants that are through a community hub initiative. So we have a number of community hubs that the City of Calgary is involved with. So there is the 1000 Voices at the Genesis Center, the Village Square Hub, Bob Behan Recreation Center, the Bowness Community Association, and also Sun Alta. So as you can see, each of those hubs sort of serves the neighboring communities around them. So quite a number of communities are served through that program as well. So I'm going to let Darren take over from now and just chat a little bit more about those granting streams that were mentioned a little bit already.
So yeah, Karen brought up the kind of three granting streams that the Calgary neighborhoods kind of grant goes through. So the three are building inclusive neighborhoods, increasing economic participation, and then fostering truth and reconciliation. So grants can be focusing on any one of these streams, but a lot of them do overlap. However, it's not a necessity. It's just that the way a lot of grants go, that these things often do have some sort of connection with the community. So yeah, it can be on any one of these or a combination of the three. So the first one is the building inclusive neighborhoods focus. Oh, I should zoom out. So this focus here, our projects are centered around building inclusivity in the neighborhood, building connections between community members, specifically those from different backgrounds and identities. So that means just like creating a setting or an opportunity to meet and build relationships with neighbors you may have not had before. I know a lot of people always bring up that maybe they didn't know that these opportunities or that there were people just like them in different neighborhoods. So I think it's just definitely important to make sure that the inclusivity can be a focus of some of the grants. And going back to kind of what Roxana and Karen talked about, that these projects kind of can include people who are often left out. So that could be the seniors who are isolated because of COVID, or people who are experiencing racism. It's meant to kind of build those bonds and relationships to what community actually is. So some examples that have happened in the past are different neighborhood walks, intergenerational board game clubs, murals pertaining to diversity, different gardening group workshops. So these are all just kind of different examples of ways that grants and projects have focused on building inclusive neighborhoods. The next one is projects focusing on increasing economic participation. So projects that are focused around increasing economic participation are make sure they're centered around removing barriers, specifically financially, sometimes increasing employability and increasing access to skills and tools in the community. So removing barriers and increasing accessibility to certain skills and tools encourages people to get involved in ways that they may not have been able to before this grant or this project. So certain examples can be things like creating different community projects like lending libraries, food pantries, community toolkits and tool sharing sheds, clothing swaps. Sometimes it can be skill building workshops where different neighborhood members are teaching things that they might specialize or focus in. So computer skills, sewing skills, cooking skills. It's basically, this is a way that you're able to work with the community to find out what different community members bring, and then share with each other, right? Everyone's always able to learn new skills. The last one would be fostering truth and reconciliation. So the projects that focus on this include projects that are looking to build relationships with Indigenous neighbors and the non-Indigenous neighbors. So as Karen brought up, there are the calls to action, and there are many different ways that we as settlers within Canada should be focused on creating reconciliation and fostering these relationships with our Indigenous neighbors. So it's about building relationships between the two parties, and then providing opportunities to learn about the colonial practices that have happened and what is Canada's history. So some examples would be providing opportunities to learn about colonialism, its lasting impacts, ribbon skirt workshops, learning from the land from children and youth groups, different blanket groups and workshops. So these would all be things that could be under the truth and reconciliation focus. Here are a bunch of examples that kind of bring everything back or show them all together. So these are things that have happened and that could happen. I want to mention that kind of what Karen and Roxana talked about. Sometimes with COVID, there have been struggles or different celebrations. So some of these include different examples of ways that they've been adapted to keep COVID in mind, and different safety measures or different connections with people who are in different settings like hospitals or seniors who are isolating and such. So I just it's good to mention that although these grants have been, although COVID has been happening, these grants have been going on. People have adapted, communities adapt, residents adapt, and there are ways that they can be facilitated throughout COVID. And while the measures are kind of easing up, it's definitely important to consider what kind of comfortability levels community and residents members have, and how these kind of the way Tyson worded it, pivots are still very important. And that's just the nature, I feel like, with all grants and such, is that you will run into things that are unexpected, right? So I'll pass it back to Jessica to kind of round it up. But yeah, feel free to look at this if you ever want examples.
And we can send that last document. I realized that was a little bit small for some folks, but it is part of one of our sort of new advertising posters. And it's got some of those new examples specifically around COVID. So I think one of the key elements of the neighborhood grant program that the city has is the advisory committees. So we actually make the advisory committees out of residents in the neighborhood. And I really love this aspect of the program because the advisory committee members are members that live in the neighborhood. We try and recruit diverse folks with different experience and different backgrounds, you know, different intersectional identities, so that we can try and provide the best support and advice to project applicants. But it's also a capacity building opportunity for the folks on the advisory committees themselves. So folks join, they are trained. I mean, lots of them are here today learning with us at the CDLI. We try and provide opportunities for them to build their own capacity and to take on different leadership roles as well. And then they provide great insights to the project applicants. Ultimately, you know, we want to fund the projects. The program is in place to fund the projects. So the role of the advisory committees is to just provide the best advice and guidance and ideas that we can to our applicants to make sure that their project's going to be successful. So we're not going to fund somebody and just leave them, like Karen mentioned, without thinking about a safety checklist or risk management or anything like that. So we try and troubleshoot everything for the applicants so that when they are in the phase of actually putting their project together, they've gotten lots of good advice and they're well advised and ready to go. So just a few other points about the grant program, and Amanda has kindly pasted into the chat the link to our website for more information about the grant program. So there's not a ton of information on there, unfortunately, but we are working on that right now, and we're working on getting our grant application actually available on that website. So feel free to check it out and do stay tuned for more information. Within the actual grant application itself, these are some of the sort of fine print that are noted. So we can't fund anything that's a capital item, that's like a physical piece of infrastructure or a physical piece of equipment. We don't fund any events where liquor or cannabis is served or consumed. As I mentioned, the funds cannot be directed towards an agency or business. They have to be towards residents. The sort of one exception for that is community associations. We can fund community associations because they are essentially just made up of community residents. And we don't fund purely social events or political advocacy. We are always looking for something that's within the 3 funding streams. So building inclusive neighborhoods, promoting truth and reconciliation, or economic participation of residents. Some more fine print. So applicants do need to live in the neighborhood where they're planning to host the project. So we are looking for people to do stuff for their own neighborhood. And we do have to have a project that's in the future. We can't back fund for anything that's already taken place. And you know, sometimes these projects take time, but as Karen mentioned, the community social worker is here with you sort of through every stage, from filling out the application to doing the project, everything along the way. So if people are interested, and because we don't have the application up on the website yet, if you want to get an application, you can email the address that was up there, and we can send you an application. And then, you know, your community social worker can actually sit down with you if you'd like, which I recommend actually, and just talk through the application with you before you even put pen to paper to kind of think through your idea. They can even maybe troubleshoot as you go before you start submitting the application. So that's another reason too that we have the advisory committees, is the community social worker is not making the decision, especially because we're helping with applicants writing the application and whatnot. So they're involved in that process. The advisory committee will go through it. And like I said, we want to fund the project. So if at all possible, we will give advice if necessary on how to maybe modify or tweak or enhance the project so that it's going to be successful, it's going to be inclusive, and it's going to meet the project outcomes. And so sometimes we may come back to you with that advice and say, we love your idea, but can you consider doing some of these other tweaks, and then send it back. And then, yes, we can approve the money going forward. We don't often want to just say no, but if, you know, you're not in the community with a program or you're not meeting any one of those outcomes, there are some of those reasons that we may say no. But when we do that as well, we always try and support residents to find other resources. So actually, Darren has been working, helping our grant committee to update all of our resources on what other community grants are available. So if somebody does have a project and they're not in one of our neighborhoods, for example, we would provide them with a list of other community grants that could be available to them or help support them if they need to connect with maybe an agency to apply for one of the grants that they want to do. So as best as possible, we always try and support any requests we can, one way or the other. Yeah, and that's kind of it in a wrap. Obviously, I'm sure there's lots of other details and questions, but the best thing is get in touch with your individual community social worker, and they can provide you with all kinds of direction and support.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Darren, so much for providing all that really great information about the grants. And I think it's such a great, I really love the idea of the advisory committee, and really, you know, at CDLI, we really talk about like by the residents for the residents. And so that's so super important. Yeah, well, Amanda has a great question about how do you know who your community social worker is, and if anyone else has any other questions, this would be an opportunity to be able to do that. Yeah, so feel free if anyone has, if you want to like answer that specific question, and a few more if there's any from folks who are curious.
Yeah, so on the website that Amanda posted up, where we do have a bit of a blurb about the granting program, we have a generic email address, which is kind of, it's neighborhoodgrants@calgary.ca. So if you're interested in a project, send an email to that email address, and then they will connect you with the community social worker for your neighborhood. The list of neighborhoods is right on there. If you look and your neighborhood is not there, but you, like I said, you still really want to do a project, send an email to that email address anyways, and we will try and connect you with other resources, maybe outside of our program.
Great, thanks. And Jessica, as you mentioned as well, like, I mean, we have folks here also here like Julie Black from the Calgary Foundation and different opportunities to be able to connect and do very similar activities at the same sort of price point there, cost there to be able to support folks in different communities as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tyson. And another thing that comes up too is sometimes maybe folks have an idea that is eligible for our grant, but it's actually a really big idea and it's a great idea, and it needs more than $1,000. So that happens, you know, that's quite common for that to happen, in which case we would sort of support and help encourage them to look at other grants that are out there, such as the Stepping Stones grant through the Calgary Foundation, or maybe the Take Action grants through Arusha Center. So sometimes folks will have, you know, 2 or 3 grants to complete a project if it's a bigger project.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a juggle, but we can work together with those other funders and definitely support things like that as well.
Awesome. And if anyone else is interested to learn more about some of the grants that we highlighted, our activities that Vic wrote up over the last few months, you can find them on our blog, and we've highlighted different stories as well, not just from blog entries, but also on our social media for those who are interested, from specifically this stream of neighborhood grants from Bridgeland, from Downtown Core, to Forest Lawn. So there's a lot of really great other initiatives that were being done that we showcased. So I did want to provide a chance for Karen to share a few photos from her project, The Birds in Bloom. So Karen, I'll give it to you, and you feel free to, if everything works out, you'll be able to see some really cool little the projects that she was talking about.
Great. I am going to try to screen share.
Yeah.
Here we go. Can you folks see that?
And no, unfortunately not.
Oh, okay. I think what I need to do is bring it up.
If you're like me, you might have lots of tabs, and sometimes when you go to share screen, it'll ask you to highlight which page you want to. There we go. Now it's something coming up.
Okay, how's that?
This is fantastic.
Great. Well, this was one of my seniors. I'm just going to go back a slide. There we go.
Yeah.
This was the cutouts. So you can see, because we were installing them at the garden, we use garden themes, but we also did some that were just leaves. That way, if people didn't have much experience, maybe a dragonfly seemed too complicated. So we also did just leaves that were very colorful. And I understand they were really popular with our male seniors. Wonderful lady from the Bethany. You see, they had to work independently of one another. Here's some of the creativity from the seniors and the kids that we got. You can see some of them are very well done.
Yeah, all look really great.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful project. This one here, absolutely stunning. And remember, all these are double-sided.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not the same on both sides. Here you can see Ruth was 90 in the bottom right-hand corner there. Marie was born in 1932, 1937. Like, it just made the heart warm. You can see the before and after here of installation, how we brightened kind of a dull corner. And again, this is a shortcut to the bus for the seniors that painted the project. This one here was the Free Little Library we did. What we did was we repurposed a newspaper box.
Mm-hmm.
We had the kids in the neighborhood paint it. It's been self-sufficient since 2014. This one here was a much bigger project, but it was part of the Twin Views communal garden and a de-pave project that we got. You can see our dilapidated tennis courts. You can see our volunteers, and you can see our very first day of planting. Such a rewarding project. And this one here was
that's so great.
This one here was a graffiti cover-up that we did. On the inside of the garden, there's a beautiful mural that was done with Prospect and the Action Disability Society. They gathered reclaimed wood from our neighborhood and made a beautiful mural. The mural faces into the garden. On the outside of the garden, somebody had tagged it with silver spray paint. So we applied for a neighborhood grant to buy some greenery. I had a donation of flowers. Once my friends and neighbors started to hear that we were going to do something to cover up the graffiti, they donated plastic flowers, and my team of volunteers that came out to help me do it. So very fortunate. Oh, this is some of the work along 17th Avenue. The theme I went with was international food, and projects in the community can be very low cost. This one here, we did by just gathering our extra harvest in the fall from our neighbors. Believe it or not, all the food here came from just my neighbors on my block. In total, we gave away 88 pounds of vegetables in about 4.5 hours. And we just put up a food is free sign. You can see the carrots weren't even washed. We pulled them out of the garden and we sat on the corner and gave them away to anybody who needed them. We did tomatoes, carrots, beans. Yeah, it was just great.
That's fantastic.
This is the sidewalk painting project that we did in May of this year. You can see the senior center in the background. You can see how we transitioned to be COVID safe, even though we were outdoors. We chose to wear masks because the public could approach us. And we just did this for 10 city blocks. We borrowed the stencils. They were on loan from us from the city of Calgary, the recreation department. And you can see we did it in good weather, but it's held up pretty good through our winter. Oh, this was a wonderful outcome. Hawks noticed the painting from the helicopter and found me and sent me pictures. Actually, they sent me a video, but the video is a lot. So I just took a few screen captures. This identifies kind of how we went about it. We identified some of our major landmarks. Of course, the Dover Community Association, the elementary school, the senior center, and Twin Views Garden. And those are the pathways that we painted.
Great.
Oh, and this one here was a little off topic, but I'm going to throw it in there anyways.
Please do.
I felt so bad that stores had been open and closed, and I didn't want to see much more of this happening in my neighborhood. So I reached out to a local retailer, and we organized a one-day cash mob. He told me it was Dexter's Pet Store in Ogden. I reached out to him because he lives in the community. He's run a business there for quite some time. And I asked him what his slowest day of the week was. And he told me that it was Thursdays. So on a Thursday afternoon, I started to promote a cash mob. I reached out to all my friends on social media, any of my contacts, and asked them to come and bring $20 and support Dexter's Pet Store on that Thursday afternoon. And I understand he did $2,200 more than he would have if we hadn't done it. And it was a free project. All I did was ask my neighbors to get out there with $20 and support it, to support that local retailer. And it was quite a success. So anyways.
Fantastic. Karen, and Roxana, thank you so much for participating, and both of you went above and beyond what we had were asking for. So thank you so much for being able to do that. And Karen, it sounds like, your neighbors, do they ever come up to you and are like, hey, Karen, what's next? Like, what other things are you up to? Do they just like seek you out to be able to do some of these really great projects?
And I find, because I've been very fortunate to, I'm not shy. I'll ask my neighbors to participate, to donate. I tried to raise 100 pairs of skates within my community, and I had to reach outside of my community, but we raised 108 pairs of skates. And all I did was ask. My neighbors always ask me what I'm up to next, and I've always trying to think of something that I can do in my neighborhood. But I'm not the only one now. It seems like when I started doing this in 2014, I was met with some resistance. And now people are just happy to get on board. I think they've seen a couple of successful projects and things that they admire, and now they're stepping up and doing similar things. I heard of a neighbor that just organized Skillshare. Well, that's pretty exciting. It was, if I can inspire somebody from my neighborhood to step up, or even from another neighborhood to find the beauty in their neighborhood, talk about it, share it, get involved with the Jane's Walk, apply for a small grant, do something beautiful. The nice thing about the neighborhood grants, I really admired when Jessica was speaking, is the fact that they're adjudicated, or you guys have a nicer term, advisory. The fact that myself, I know my community really well. I realize we have some fabulous social workers, but I live here. It's really easy to identify a need and to have their support to help you work through the paperwork and the navigation and get you set on a right track to make it bigger, or to make it as a step towards something bigger, is just, I can't speak enough about having the support from my community.
Well, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, I was just going to say thank you. And I just wanted to know, somebody had messaged me directly asking about seeing Roxana's video. And videos tend to not stream very well on Zoom. So what we'll do is, in the follow-up email from tonight's session where we share the recording, we will also share there Roxana's video so that you can watch that on your own internet that's not already being stressed by Zoom, so it won't be super choppy. So just wanted to acknowledge that request, and that we will make sure that you all have access to that, and definitely recommend that you follow, if you're on TikTok, that you follow Roxana there and see those videos there.
Great. And I've seen the video and it is fantastic. And Roxana, you did such a great job of pulling that together and really demonstrating the importance of anti-racism. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to our roundtable members, Karen and Roxana, for sharing with us today. Thank you to Jessica and Darren from the CSW team. and the granting committees. For those who are here today, thank you so much for showing up. And thanks for the presentations and all of the work that each and every one of you do in your communities and supporting Calgary to be a more of an inclusive city. So thank you everyone for being here today. There's a few things we wanted to mention as well before we leave here tonight. So we would love for you to know a little bit more about your experience today by completing our CD in Action feedback form. If you have ideas for your community but would like a bit of support in deepening your skills to help make it possible, I would definitely push and consider joining our upcoming 8-week Success in Community Action training. It takes place on Monday evenings starting February 28th from 6 to 8. And we are we're starting that up. So we love to have more and more folks who have ideas and actions that they want to be able to work out over the course of those 8 weeks. In addition, if you're interested for a different group to join, and we have our asset-based community development learning and action team, which meets the first Wednesday of the month from 6 to 7. So that will be next week. So you can find out more, and there's a link in the chat. You can get involved in a number of other community efforts CDLI is involved in and supports. So you can check out our website to see more of what's coming up and be sure to register to our newsletter to get the latest information. And if you'd like to help make things happen, we would also love to hear from you. So please let us know in this form about how you can get involved in ways that you would like to participate in CDLI. And if you're interested in a practicum placement with us, you can check out our website and send us an email with your strengths and interests. And we would love to be able to learn more about you.
Yeah, I know there's a few people here tonight who've expressed that. So just wanted to put that there as well. So we know that we have about 2 minutes left. We are so grateful to have spent this evening together. We do like to bring our gatherings to a close with an opportunity to express a gratitude or something you're taking away so that we can kind of all capture that. So if you all don't mind putting something into the chat now, and we can maybe kind of hit the enter button at 8 and get a waterfall of gratitude going. That will be how we bring our amazing conversation tonight to close. And just once again, huge thank you to everyone for being here, and especially to our people who are brave enough to share their experiences and be here on the Zoom call and the recording. We know that's not easy. But yeah, thank you, and looking forward to the waterfall of gratitude in the chat.